And for more on the election results in Bangladesh, let's speak to Vishnu Padmanabhan, Asia correspondent at The Economist. Now, Vishnu, the results came in much earlier than expected, right? We were expecting maybe it will come in about a week, and the results are very clear in such a short time, less than 24 hours. Were you surprised by this turn of events?
Yes, I mean, I had expected actually a much closer race, and I was thinking that the counting would be going on now, and it'd be much tighter between BNP and Jamaat. But this is quite surprising that it's happened so quickly. But I did expect BNP to win, but just by not this much of a margin.
Why did you think it was going to be a closer fight?
Because I mean, just leading up, some of the polling data had some of the pre-election polling data had BNP at 40% of the vote share and Jamaat at 30%. So it suggested it'd be closer. But I think actually more than the result, the one thing that struck me about this election is the fact that the way it happened, and they seem to have been largely free and fair, which is a huge landmark in itself. This is the first free and fair election in Bangladesh since 2008. And that's really significant because it's a young country. And so for 40% of the population, including the students who participated in the protest in 2024, this is their first election. And so the fact that it's taken place without major incidents is a big deal. And the fact that Jamaat seems to have accepted defeat is also a great sign for the future of democracy in Bangladesh. And even the voter turnout, which is around 60%, I believe the latest estimate, is solid and suggests that people on the whole are ready to embrace democracy in Bangladesh.
Right. Now, Tariq Rahman's big promise was no tolerance for corruption. Yet his party, the BNP itself, was mired in corruption for years under his mother, the previous prime minister. How will he be able to shake off this legacy? More importantly, what does he need to do early on to demonstrate that his BNP is not the same as the one before?
Yes, that's the big question, right? That's the big question, the build-up to the elections, and that's the big question facing Bangladesh now, is that can BNP shed this sort of past of, which has been tainted by corruption scandals, abuses of power, political violence, generally poor governance. And even though Tariq Rahman was never part of his mother's government in between 2001 and 2006, it's widely believed he was involved in some of the excesses of that regime. And I mean, in one way, so in the build-up to this election, Tariq Rahman has insisted that a lot of the allegations of corruption in that time were trumped up by the Awami League, and that his party are committed to sort of ensuring fair politics and ensuring the rule of law, and they'll cramp down on corruption. And so that's what he's been saying, and in the build-up to the election. And it seems clear that given the mandate, that the people of Bangladesh believe that the party has changed and the party can turn over a new leaf. But the question now is sort of, in practice, what happens? And I think they have a good opportunity to show that they're committed to sort of reform and sort of ensuring that the failures of the past are repeated by passing this July Charter, right? So this election was also a referendum on the July Charter, which was a bunch of reforms that the interim government came up with to ensure that Bangladesh's democracy is strengthened. And so the people have voted unanimously in favor of passing this charter. And now the parties who all committed before the election that they would pass it because it requires a constitutional amendment now have a chance to actually go do it in Parliament. And so if one of the first things, if we can get that package passed, that'd be a very good sign. The other sign would be, I think, the big sort of other big question hanging over Bangladesh is the fate of the Awami League, which has been banned and did not contest this election, but it still sort of enjoys some support. And over the past 18 months, there has been sort of some retributive justice towards supporters of Awami League or members of the party in Bangladesh. And so if some of that extrajudicial action is sort of clamped down on by the BNP in power, that would, I think, would be a good sign that this Bangladesh is moving away from this politics of violence and retribution to sort of a more democratic system.
Now, Vishnu, it's interesting you brought up the Awami League here, who barred from this election. The youths who led the the uprising, they were tired of the corruption. They were tired of the power circulation among the entrenched elites. But the BNP itself is an entrenched elite versus and as so was the Awami League. Now, their presence, still looms large despite being barred. Are we seeing another round of this? Is it again the BNP versus Awami League, even though they were disbarred?
Yeah, so that's the worry, and you're right. It is a bit paradoxical that we had this big revolution in 2024, promising, heralding big change. But if you look at some of the performance, I mean, a handful of student candidates who contested this election have done well, but it really wasn't. It wasn't the emergence of a new party. But I also think it's the context of South Asian politics. It's very hard to start a new party from the grassroots and for it to succeed. And so that might take time for a new party to come, a third party to emerge in Bangladesh from the ground up. Might take time, but yes. So the uncertainty is what happens with the Awami League. Awami League's leaders continue to sort of dismiss this election as a farce, and even today they issued a statement not recognizing the election. So until that happens, I see it very difficult for Awami League to be unbanned in the first place. Right, the only scenario given based on sort of my trip to Bangladesh last year, I spoke to people, the only scenario where I think the Awami League can sort of come up again is if there's some sort of contrition on their part and a change of their leadership and a real distancing. If they really distance themselves from what happened in 2024 and the crackdown on those protests. And perhaps then they can show to the rest of Bangladesh that they have truly sort of changed. Right. But until that happens, I don't see sort of anything changing too much.
Right. Yeah. And finally, quickly, last question. What does this election mean then for the opposition, which is the Jamaat Islami? It also, had a coalition of 11 youth parties, leaders who were part of the youth uprising. What's their role now?
So their role, I think, is, and they're going to play a very important role in sort of acting as opposition, and they're saying the right thing. So the Jamaat have issued a statement saying that they recognize sort of the victory and that they want to play good, be involved in positive politics. I believe the phrase was used, and so now they have to show that, right? As opposition, they have to act like a good opposition. They need to be a check on any excesses that the BNP show signs of. If the BNP look like they're going towards old ways, then it's the Jamaat that will be really important in making sure that doesn't happen. So I think that is the fundamental role now for them. And of course, working with the BNP to ensure that all these reforms that they all committed to before can get implemented and really strengthen Bangladesh's democracy.
All right, Vishnu, thanks so much for the analysis. And I was speaking with Vishnu Padmanabhan, Asia correspondent at The Economist.